Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name's Luke, and I am joined by first-time guest of the show and fairly well-known amateur undefeated MMA fighter, Clayton Hoot Lee.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So nice having you on the show. As I just alluded to, you made a great debut at an earlier 247 Fighting Championship event. You took on a guy who was 1-0. You were a debut fighter. You do have a big fight coming up for Brawl in the Burgh, April 15th at the Hollywood Casino at the Meadows. But let's first talk about your debut. I got to call the fight cage side. It was very exciting. Kind of walk us through it. What was that like for your first MMA experience?
It was pretty nerve-wracking. I mean, it was something different. It was a lot different than wrestling. I don't even know how I can explain it. And that it wasn't bad in the back. And then once I got in the arena, I heard everybody yelling and screaming like that. Then it made me a little nervous. But and then it didn't end up going the way I thought it would go. I thought I would look a lot better because I'd practice a lot better in the room. I look a lot better in the room. But it was a good experience. I got hit early, hard by Dan, but I was glad I was able to come back from that and just show that I don't even know how I would explain it, but it was a good experience, I would say.
Well, that makes sense. And sometimes it's a better experience knowing that you got through some of the challenges. And I think it's going to take a lot to get to the point where you fight as well as you train. That's why you always have to train against really good opponents. You're wearing the Shop sweatshirt and you're at the Shop. I've interviewed Gavin Teasdale there, obviously the Cahill, all three Cahill brothers and others right at where you're sitting. What got you connected to the Shop? How long have you been training there? Because obviously that's an up and coming gym that's really doing a lot in MMA.
I knew the Cahills from wrestling in high school. They'd pop into the room sometimes, and they have jiu-jitsu here. And after high school wrestling, I still wanted to compete. So I came here practicing jiu-jitsu to do like some Naga tournaments and stuff. And then I'd stay and hang out with them and Gavin, and we'd practice some MMA stuff. And then they said I have a lot of potential, and it's always something that I'd wanted to do. And then they introduced me to Danilo, and it's just been a really great experience working with these guys. Just giving me a good opportunity.
It really is a great opportunity. Like you said, you got connected with the Shop and also Indio DoJo with Danilo. You mentioned the word potential. You're 21 years old, so this is what is making MMA, particularly local MMA that 247 puts on, so exciting because more and more, the Cahill brothers are a great example. Obviously, you are. I already mentioned Gavin Teasdale, really showing kind of great wrestling background guys getting into MMA in the very early 20s, as opposed to some of the other names that got into MMA, including Randy Couture, that got into it at 34 after a great wrestling career. Even DC Cormier got into MMA later after. So what do you think it's like transitioning from wrestling into MMA with jiu-jitsu and striking at 21 as opposed to 10 years from now? What do you think that's doing for you and others who are building up MMA, particularly in the local area from that wrestling base?
I think it'll give me a lot of extra time to sharpen up on striking and stuff instead of waiting until I was a little bit older to do it. And same with jiu-jitsu, I'll just have more time to get to sharpen everything up and just get better as a complete mixed martial artist.
I think that's definitely what we've been seeing, more and more fighters that are either fighting on any of the big cards once they work their way up. I've been watching, 4 or 5 seasons of Dana White Contender Series. And one thing we're seeing more and more is that, people are able to put together a well-rounded MMA skill set younger than they used to because they're putting everything together earlier, such as yourself. We mentioned Gavin Teasdale and the Cahill brothers. Let's talk about the fight that's coming up. You mentioned taking on Dan Waters as your debut opponent, who at the time was 1-0. And right there, I think that's great that, you took a matchup. Even though you had a lot of wrestling background, you took a matchup against somebody who was already 1-0 in MMA, kind of shows you want to take on somebody with more experience. You're going to be taking on Devin Sadarski, who has fought twice for 247, has a 1-1 record. Talk about that matchup. You're going to be fighting at 170 pounds. Like I said, April 15th for Brawl in the Burgh 16. What are your thoughts going into that fight?
I think it's going to be a tough fight. I think he's a really tough guy. I watched both his fights. He really likes the guillotine, so I just got to be careful. He seems a little unorthodox, so I just got to be really composed during the whole fight. My last fight, I kind of got punched early, and all I wanted to do was punch him back. This time, I need to work on staying smart and composed, and should be able to get it done. Use my wrestling, use my jiu-jitsu. My jiu-jitsu is getting a lot better. Going up at Indio and then working with Taylor and Toby and all the guys here at the shop. They're world team members, so
Yeah.
I got a lot of guys to work with as far as it comes to jiu-jitsu.
Right, they competed overseas in the worlds of grappling / BJJ sort of mixed together, right? It was a combined. Yeah, that was really cool. I had them on the show to talk about that. I think their youngest of the three, KO's Kobe, actually medaled, and everybody got a lot of great experience. And you brought it up. I'm obviously talking about, I've had, I would say, the Shop / Indio DoJo on the show the most, but also in the area, there's a few other gyms, the Mat Factory, the Academy that tend to fight in this area a lot too. But the Shop and Indio DoJo really are coming up a lot as far as skill set. Who do you spar with or roll with the most? I would assume Taylor Cahill and probably Tanner, because they're around your size. Is there anybody else there?
I work with Taylor a lot, and
Sure.
then if I want to sharpen up my wrestling and stuff, I'll work with Gavin. He's really good.
Sure.
Tanner, really good too. And then if I want to get extra work in, my cousin Austin, he wrestled at UPJ. He's really tough. He pushes me, and just mainly those guys. So we got a lot of guys here that we're all pretty tough. We all work out pretty hard. It's good experience.
Sure, and that's a great list of guys right there. Curious about your cousin Austin. Is he somebody that's looking to, since he has UPJ in his background, is he somebody that's looking to get into MMA, or is he basically there to help you and get you better?
I hope he starts doing it, because he has a lot of potential too. He's really good wrestler. He's super strong, very athletic guy. But he just started a new job, so he hasn't been having quite as much time to do it. But hopefully in the future he steps in the cage.
Well, I'll say it here. I'd love to have him on MMA Fancast when that day comes. And that's something that I think when people watch these videos, they have to appreciate that all amateurs, and I would say a lot of the early level pros, have to have real jobs, have to have full-time jobs. It's a really tough thing to be trying to balance training. And so hats off to your cousin Austin. I hope he's able to do well at this new job, but also find a way to balance it to get into MMA. You're young. What are you doing for work, or are you kind of just focused full time on MMA, or what are you doing on the side, or is this on the side for what you're mainly doing?
So I'm actually pretty lucky. I actually sell French bulldogs, and that's all I do. I sell French bulldogs. Yeah. And then I have a lot of time to train, and thankfully I've been taking advantage of that. And I just got a lot of support around me. I'm able to do well from the bulldogs, and then just so it gives me more time to train, as crazy as it sounds.
Well, I gotta ask questions about this now. No, that is that's a small business. That sounds really good. So you breed them and you have them there like yourself. So when you say you breed them, you can only breed them once or twice a year. So you're saying there's kind of a lot of downtime, and obviously, yeah. So what got you into breeding and selling Frenchies? And I think that's a surprisingly good business to have, to give you a lot of free time.
My aunt actually is the one who got me interested in it. My mom always bred golden retrievers and English bulldogs, and then my aunt does the French bulldogs, and she's like pretty well known in the breeding community. And she just was talking to me about it, and it was something I wanted to get into.
And when did you start doing that? Because it obviously gives you a level of financial ability to be able to train more, which I think is great. You've been out of high school a few years. When did you start getting into it as your like main thing?
I started getting into it pretty heavy about a year and a half ago is when I started well on it, and now it's just no looking back at this point.
Oh, that's incredible. I've been around some French bulldogs. My preference out of the dogs you listed would be the golden retrievers, but still great that you're doing what you're doing. I think it also shows how focused you have to be on MMA to say like, hey, you love what you're doing. The Frenchies are great. That's helping you, but it's really allowing you to focus. A former champ for 247, John DeJesus, was a full-time tree climber and cutter. And I mean, he was older in his early 30s, had a wife, kids, all that. But he talked about trying to get extra reps in with he'd cut down a branch and quick rep it out real quick while he was still working, because he had to kind of use his job as his workout because he needed to be able to do that. So it's nice that you have that focus. For you, you mentioned coming into this fight against Devin Zdarsky as a little bit more, you want to be able to follow your game plan a little bit more. You mentioned that in your first fight you got cracked, and then kind of understandably, that's what MMA brings out. You kind of started chasing the striking as opposed to sticking to your game plan, knowing that your opponent likes guillotines, finish the fight with a guillotine. And I think wrestling, you have many ways to still take down without getting caught in a guillotine. But how aware do you have to be of that? Because we've seen wrestlers in MMA fights maybe do a desperation shot, not set it up right. So how much are you working to make sure that your shots are MMA appropriate because your opponent does have that guillotine?
I've been working on it pretty hard. So Tanner Cahill has one of the best guillotines that you'd ever see. So if anybody can find your neck, it's that guy. So I've been working with him, and obviously he's a good wrestler. So he's not just going to catch you. You know what I mean? Like it's something that we've really been working on.
Again, that goes back to not only training, but with whom you train, your sparring partners. You mentioned Taylor. He's been on this show a bunch. And that makes sense. That's that classic iron sharpens iron Bible verse that gets used a lot in wrestling or other types of martial arts training, because by training with people who really don't take it easy on you, push hard, it prevents you from getting caught down the road. What do you want to see from your performance April 16th, and how excited are you to be fighting at the casino? Because that's kind of a great location, gets a lot of excitement, a lot of people. It's a real loud environment.
I want to stay obviously more composed, and I want to stay in good position, and I really want to get a finish this time. It's that's always the goal, is to always finish your opponent, and I just want to stay patient and let the finish come to me and just stay in good position and stuff like that.
Well, you're calling for a finish, which, like you said, always does make very exciting fights. You're fighting an opponent who's already had a finish with a guillotine, so I think it's a great matchup to both of you. I always like to give credit to Jim Mooney, the head matchmaker for 247, and of course the owner Ryan and the GM Hunter, because they put on a great card, and there's going to be a lot of excitement. I think they're up to maybe four fights that are announced, yours being one of them, for the April 15th card. And it is a great card, even with the four that they've announced. So the card's only going to get deeper. It has a pro title fight on it, which I think is always exciting, not only for the fans to get amateurs all the way up to a high-level pro title fight with Ethan the Wolverine Goss, but I also think it shows you, as in your second fight, kind of seeing where MMA can go. You know, you could down the road be fighting for an amateur belt and then potentially even a pro belt under 247. We've seen it be done before people really develop, which is exciting for you. Let's get to your thank yous, or people you want to express gratitude for, because you've made your prediction. You're hunting for a finish. You're taking on a guy who's also an uppercomer in the welterweight division of amateurs for 247. I think this is a great fight for the fans.
Okay, I want to thank my parents for all the support they give me. My cousin Austin, the Cahills and their family, Steve and Stacy, are great. I want to thank all the Fluffmans. I've been training down at Iron Mountain. He's been a personal trainer for me. He's been supporting me, and just all the fans that come to watch me. And it's been great. I really appreciate all of it from everybody, and it's a great experience.
Well, that is really cool. I appreciate you coming on MMA Fancast for the first of hopefully many, many times. So best skills to you. I'd love to have you back on after your fight and also before whatever comes next to you. So best skills to you. For people out there that haven't yet gotten your tickets for Brawl in the Burgh 16, get them from the guys directly at the shop, Indio Dojo, Hoot, and everybody else. Really helps them. And this card is going to be absolutely a packed house. It's a super fun event location. And I can't wait to see you live in action. I know you and Devin, you have to have what they call a dance partner. You know, you've got to have a dance partner in order to make all your work pay off. So hats off to Devin as well. But can't wait to see what you do. Best skills to you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
You've been listening and watching to Clayton Hoot Lee. Have a good one.